Hi everyone, this is Michael Teoh here, the founder of Thriving Talents, and I'm so excited today because I have a very good friend, even though we have just briefly met, but I like his energy, I like his intention, and most importantly, I like his work that he's doing. So joining me today here is Hunter Tiedemann. Now, Hunter, you got to correct me if I pronounce your name wrongly, and then you can introduce yourself to the audience. Hunter here he was introduced to me by two good friends of mine who are the top management thinkers in the United States, and he's embarking on a very exciting project in his university, which is world renowned as being one of the top universities globally. And personally, I know it's the university that has produced a lot of, I would say, heirs or children to all the major politicians and leaders around the world. So it's very amped that Hunter, you are interviewing me from this university. Of course, I'm talking about Georgetown University. And of course, let's talk about your book, The Time Is Now. But I'm going to pass the stage back to you, Hunter. And Hunter's going to be asking me some questions. We just really want to document this interview so that all of you watching this right now could also benefit from it from time and time again. So Hunter, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what is this exciting project you're embarking on?
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. So my whole project here is part of a class I'm taking at Georgetown, where instead of learning entrepreneurship through the lens of starting a company, we are learning entrepreneurship through the concept of launching our own book and what that looks like in terms of marketing, finding an audience, finding a message, finding our overall mission. And my book focuses on teaching leadership to college students and what that concept should look like when you're young and you're just starting out in your career. And so I've always been so curious about what that means to be a leader. And so I've been reaching out to different people, and I'm so fortunate to be here with Michael today. And Michael, first question for you. I'm just kind of curious, what was your first experience with a world-class leader, boss, whatever it may be, and what was it about that person that you took with you now into your consulting and Thriving Talents?
Wow, thank you so much, Hunter. Now, I must admit that one of the more memorable experience I've ever had working or experiencing a world-class leader would be your former president, President Barack Obama. I've had the great opportunities through the training programs that I do, that I was given the opportunity by Microsoft to actually facilitate a workshop where they invited both President Barack Obama and the Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Prime Minister of my country, Dato Sri Najib, to actually come over to the workshop and observe the workshop. And right after the workshop concluded, President Barack Obama gave a speech, and I had this great opportunity, this golden 10 minutes, I would say, to have a chat with him. And of course, you know, everyone could read up on any information on the president anywhere online from the books he has written. But one of the things I find is that if you really want to become a leader, you need to be articulate. Now, I understand that some people may argue, saying that, you know, not all leaders are meant to be great communicators. But I'm a believer where if you really want to step up that extra level, you need to have great communication skills. Now, obviously, that comes from a lot of practice, a lot of daring attempts and endeavors to go in front of a large crowd or even just a group of people, and with the intentions of inspiring them to a common goal. I think one of the major traits of these great world leaders is that they're able to rally up people and unite them towards a common goal. This is something I call pinnacle leadership, in a sense where people may not know you personally, but people could resonate and buy into that motto, into that principle, into that cause, into that struggle that you have been promoting or propagating. If you look at all the world's greatest leaders, world-class leaders, you're talking about Winston Churchill, you're talking about Mahatma Gandhi of India, you're talking about people from the religious front like Archbishop Desmond Tutu. You're talking about role models like Sir Richard Branson for entrepreneurship, which I personally had the chance to meet as well. Great guy. Sir Richard Branson's a great guy. And what happened is that you find that all of them, sure, they may not be the best articulators in the world as compared to President Barack Obama, personally, in my opinion. But you realize that when they articulate a message, they're able to inspire. And they're able to inspire us because they've always had this bigger goal, a goal beyond themselves, a goal that shows that they are rather selfless in their service to society, in their service to the world, in their service to our civilization. And what happened is people gravitate towards that goal. People could resonate with them. Obviously, you're going to get haters, you're going to get doubters, right? Because not everyone is going to resonate with your goal, but all you need is just a group of people who believes in your cause, who believes in your struggle, and with your way of being able to articulate that well, to inspire people to be charismatic. And by the way, being charismatic comes from your ability of being able to communicate, being able to motivate people, right? So what happened is that once you're able to do all that, people will gravitate to you. And from my first experience with a world-class global leader, President Barack Obama, I find that he could do all that. And he inspired me. He inspired a lot of Malaysian youths. And again, we're in Southeast Asia. We're like 28 hours away by flight from the United States. Yet we could gravitate to what he stood for at that time: youth empowerment, entrepreneurship. So that would be my first experience with the world leader. So the takeaway point for all of you is, if you want to be a great leader, you got to practice that communication skills. You got to be able to articulate, because people gravitate. People are attracted to leaders who are able to sell them a major goal that they can resonate with. And that is the thing that we do here in Thriving Talents. You know, we are a talent development company. We provide consulting, coaching, and training to Fortune 500 companies around the world in 39 countries so far, going to country number 40 by June this year, 2018, Latvia. And what happened is that, you know, when we work with companies, we work with their younger leaders, what we call millennials, people like you and me, Hunter. And what happened is that we would create that awareness in them that if they've always had that ambition to be a great leader, they need to start buckling up. They need to start harnessing their articulation skills. They need to be better communicators. They need to be more empathetic listeners. That's what we do so passionately.
Awesome. I love that story. And I just had two quick follow-ups I just wanted to ask you. Tell me more about that day when you met President Obama and you stood in his presence and you saw the pinnacle of leadership in the United States. What else did you take away from him? That, you know, what was it about being in his presence that you got, wow, that's leadership. Wow, that is inspiration and a character, you know.
Excellent. Well, my second point for all of you would be something called consistency. That's the second point. In the sense where you see, how did we gravitate towards President Barack Obama and everything that he stood for during his time of presidential, I would say, governance of the United States, is that he has always been consistent with his views. He has rather projected that he has always been empowering young people. He has always believed in young enterprises. And even though I am not an American citizen, but yet I admired him because of the consistency of his messages and the consistency of his struggles. I believe part of leadership is that people are looking for leaders who are consistent, because the last thing you want is to bank all your efforts, all your money, all your trust on a leader that would just turn around the next day or would say the incorrect things the next week. So what happened is that we are investing our trust, we are investing a lot of our efforts into leaders that are consistent. They are seen as consistent throughout their efforts, in a sense, throughout their outreach programs, throughout the way how they treat people, towards the way how they treat their staff, throughout the way how they do public relations, diplomacy. So that's where we're looking at. We're looking at consistency. And when I met President Barack Obama, being in his presence, it felt very warm, because ever since he got elected as your president during that time, and we have been following him with interest, he has shown consistency in the way how he speaks, in the messages that he portrayed to the American people and the world as a whole. He portrayed consistency in his dedication towards empowering the younger generation of leaders, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and we could gravitate towards that. So I believe the second key point I want to share here is consistency. His social media campaigns were all consistent with the image he was portraying, the words that he was using, his behavior, the way how his body language would portray his leadership style. They were all consistent with who he is. And we could gravitate towards that.
Yeah, I love that concept, that consistency goes right hand in hand with authenticity. It's very difficult to consistently be something that's not who you really are, you know. And I think that's a great example of President Obama, where you have that consistency, but it was easy because he was so authentic, you know. And it's a really key component of leadership.
Definitely.
I also loved you said earlier about um, you're always going to have those haters. You're always going to have something that's going to pull back from that common goal to which you orient the team. And I'm
Right.
curious, in your experience founding Thriving Talents and kind of embarking on that entrepreneurial venture, what are some of the things you had to overcome as the leader of your own firm and inspiring the team to that common goal?
Wow. I think one of the things that people would need to know is that, especially when you start a business and you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader at the same time, and to think that you're a leader, and because you're a leader, you're able to take that easy way out, you're able to demand people to do things, you're hiring people, you're commanding them around. That is not the case. One of the things I find, especially in an Asian culture, if you become a leader, especially for a startup, and especially if it's your company, you'll be expected to work twice harder than your normal employees, I would say, or your normal colleagues. I'd rather call them as colleagues rather than employees. Reason being because a leader is always seen as the symbol where their employees need to tap in to get their motivation, to get their inspiration, to get their aspiration, to get their goals. So if you are a leader, but then you rarely even speak to your employees or your colleagues, you rarely even engage them, you rarely even, I would say, quote unquote, gave a damn about how they are, it's very tough because you are bound to lose touch with whatever that's happening in your business or whatever that's happening in the market. And bearing in mind, this will be your employees, your staff, your colleagues, I would say. They'll be the ones reaching out to more people as your representative of your company. So I believe one of the things, one of the challenges being a leader in a startup or starting a business when you're quite young is that you need to learn that, you cannot act like a boss. You need to act like a leader. A boss is someone whom I would imagine, you are working in an established firm, you're most likely an employee being put into a position of power, and you have like 100 staff ready to do whatever you ask them to do. And the staffs are only obeying you because you have the position, because you have actually generated some track record in your previous business, I would say, encounters that have actually created results for the company. But when you become a leader, especially in a new business, the staff are not just respecting you because you have that position, not because you're the founder or the CEO. They have to respect you because they could see your drive. They need to respect you because they can see your sacrifice. They need to respect you because they can see how you are selfless and you always put their interests as one of your top priorities. Only then you will create an unstoppable force among your staff, especially in a new business. Now, obviously, as your business grow, hopefully to a Fortune 500 company status, where you employ thousands of people all around the world, what happens is that then your staff will now become leaders in their own rights, and they will lead people and they will inspire people with their energy and their belief, their resolve, I would say, in fighting, coming together, uniting towards the common goal of the company. So I would say, number one, the challenge of a leader running a business, especially if you're young and you're new, is to remove that misconception that you can be a boss. I'm sorry, you can't be a boss. In fact, I would always advocate be a leader. And you need to always gain the trust of your team by leading by example, by being there for them. And that's most important.
Uh-huh. I love that. That's such a great answer. And I took some notes down here that the leader must work the hardest, and that's something we always hear. Okay, well the CEO, the owner's going to work the hardest, but you do that though because everyone else has to borrow from you. They got to borrow that inspiration, that extra energy from you. When the chips are down, who is going to create the next level of energy we needed? And that's what the leader does. I
Right.
love that concept there, Michael.
Thank
And
you.
I was also curious. Uh, so part of this project for me is one getting over the hurdle of college students feeling as though we're inadequate to be leaders, and then two, teaching them leadership. But first, getting over that hurdle. And so when Thriving Talents comes in to consult with companies to help them really get the most out of their millennial talent, um, how do you get kids over that hurdle of feeling adequate, feeling empowered to be leaders? That what would you say is the most important thing in helping them get over that hump?
Excellent question, Hunter. In fact, I need to give credit to our clients. So, Thriving Talents, we were set up in the year 2012, and we've had the great opportunities to learn from the world's leading companies. And we're so grateful because after we have learned from them, we have the great opportunity to train their millennial leaders, to train their younger leaders in their companies. And I'm talking about huge names. I'm talking about what we have learned from companies like Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, General Electric, Sony, HSBC, one of the world's largest banks. So we learn from all these major companies and we work with them across their global operations. Personally, for me, I've had the great opportunities to work very closely with Microsoft in a sense where I'm one of their global advisors for their largest youth program, and that is called Microsoft Youth Spark. So I go to Seattle quite a lot, and that's really fun. Now, why am I sharing this with you? We have worked with many companies. We have worked with literally hundreds of companies from all around the world. So we are not local. We are rather global. Again, we've expanded our operations to 39 countries, with country number 40 coming up this year in June. And we have also learned from a lot of global leaders. I've had the great opportunities to learn from Sir Richard Branson, President Barack Obama, my Prime Minister, Dato Sri Najib, and of course, Air Asia, the world's best low-cost airline here in Asia, its founder, Tony Fernandez. Now, whenever I meet them and whenever I ask them about how they have empowered young people, and they have a variety of answers. They will talk about they empower young people with entrepreneurship. They empower young people by empowering them with opportunities. They empower young people by delegating more tasks to them. But one of the things that I realized, the common denominators from all that they have mentioned is opportunity to experiment. Now, then again, for Thriving Talents, personally for me, I've had the great opportunities to also work with universities. Like I've given speeches in Oxford University before. I was in Stanford University, as we shared before this went online. And it has been amazing, right? Now, one of the things I learned is that most of these universities that have managed to produce great student leaders is that they allow them the opportunity to experiment. And oftentimes I tell students this: let's weigh the pros and cons. You're still in university. When you enroll into a university, whether you realize it or not, you are protected by the rules or the boundaries of the university. Now, oftentimes students would grim over that. They will be like, oh God, I'm protected by the rules of the university. Oh, I'm like living in a prison. No, 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 don't think that way. Think of it this way. If you're a student studying in a university, the university has all interest to not allow you to fail, in a sense where they have the responsibility, if you were to join a competition, as an example, to make sure that you succeed in the best way possible. Now, how is this related to what's opportunity to experiment? During your university years, take the opportunity to join competitions. Take the opportunities to lead student associations, student unions, student councils. Take the opportunity to start projects. It was just last week, I've had the great opportunity to become one of the chief judges for the world's premier computing competition organized by Microsoft called the Imagine Cup. And I've seen the brightest innovators from countries like Indonesia, South Korea, Nepal, Sri Lanka, presenting their innovation to me. Now, these students, they are not Nobel Peace Prize winners yet. But one thing they did know is that when they joined this Microsoft Imagine Cup competition, a student IT computing competition, they were allowing themselves opportunity to fail through experimentation, yet also succeed through experimentation as well. So I always would share with students, what is the worst thing that could happen to you if you were to experiment with leadership? Leadership in a student council, leadership in a project, leadership in a company like General Electric, HSBC, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, that may have internship opportunities with your university. And in that leadership experience, in that project, in your internship, in your management trainee program, you fail. I'm sorry, that is life. You failed. You failed the task. You discovered a flaw in yourself. What's the worst that's going to happen to you? As long as you don't commit murder, as long as you don't do drugs, as long as you don't leak out any data, confidential data of the company, I highly doubt you get thrown out of university. The most you're going to get a warning letter from the university. And what happened? You still learn from that experiment. You still learn from that experience. The university will do whatever it takes to protect you. Because remember, they have to protect their own reputation as well. And when you have recovered from that failure, that temporary failure from experiment, and when you're on your way up to success, your university is going to take credit as well for your success because you came from their system. So I would always encourage students to experiment. And the things I've learned from great companies like HSBC, General Electric, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, Sony is that they have always encouraged their employees whom they have singled out as future leaders to experiment, to innovate, to inculcate that entrepreneurial behavior in them.
No, you're absolutely right. Throughout this process, I've really discovered that theme of exceptional leaders, especially at innovative companies where their product is constantly changing, is to set the boundaries of where you want the company to go, and then unleash your talent, unleash the people whom you brought in, let them be creative within those confines. And it sounds a lot what you're talking about of allow your youth and your millennial talent to fail a little bit, to check it out. You know, what is the worst thing that can happen, unless it's catastrophic, but what is the worst thing that could happen? I love that concept.
That's right. I mean, Hunter, if you think about it, if you were to go to a company, and thank God you mentioned some of those companies that are our clients, we're very grateful for that. But imagine going to a more traditionalist company and you just thought, you know what, I've heard Hunter and Michael's interview. I want to experiment right now, considering the fact you're now in a very traditionalist company. What happened? You may get fired because of your failure. Again, traditionalist company, yeah? But if you're in university right now, and since you are writing a book that I'm sure is going to impact thousands and millions of college students all around the world, use this opportunity now to experiment. And I'm so gutted, you know, I'm so sad that oftentimes when there is an opportunity for students to be involved with competitions, with leadership positions, with opportunities to be enterprising, students tend to shy away. I'm not sure about the context in the United States. I mean, I've done training in the United States 11 times, and I absolutely love the millennial talents there, the students there, the youth there. But for Asia, because I've lived here all my life, students here tend to shy away from opportunities. So I'm not sure how is it like in the United States, but if you're listening to this right now or you're watching this, stop shying away. Take opportunity, take action.
Absolutely. No, you're definitely right. And I'm definitely here at Georgetown, but that persona of enterprising and pushing the envelope and getting out there beyond the boundaries of Georgetown, it's pervasive. You got kids doing phenomenal things here. And I love that concept of, you know, there's only so much time you have in your life to innovate. So when you're young, you got to take advantage of it. And it sounds like that's a lot of what Thriving Talents is organized around, which is absolutely beautiful.
Thank
you. This question may be on more of a personal note, but what would you describe as your most important and lasting leadership experience throughout your career?
Values. I'm always a believer where values become the compass as a leader when you make decisions, especially during daunting moments, especially during the most challenging of times. And I believe oftentimes when economic pressures, political pressures, pressures from the community creeps in, what happens is that leaders tend to lose their values. And leaders don't realize is that values are your compass, in a sense where great leaders build great companies. But great companies come from the very foundation of what these leaders believed in when they first founded these companies. And their beliefs come from their values. So if you were to ask me, one of the major value I have, number one is trust. So I know one thing, as a leader, I value trust. I give trust to my team members, and I expect trust back. The moment trust is broken, either with me and my team members or with me and the client or with me and the vendor, it'll be very hard to mend that because it's going back against my values. The second value I would have is loyalty, in a sense where I believe in rewarding talents handsomely, I would say, if they show loyalty. But whenever loyalty is broken with me, it's very hard to work with me again. And the third thing that I would always look at is collaboration. In the sense where that's also my third value, in the sense where I'm always a believer that I may be the leader of Thriving Talents. We have grown very well, thank God. But at the same time as well, I know that it didn't come from me personally. I've always given credit to mentors. I've always given credit to the great leaders I've met. Most importantly, I've always given credit to my loved ones, my family members, and my team members who are actually with me throughout the journey. And all that comes through collaboration. So now you would know that as a leader, if you were to put me in a scenario and Michael, would you decide on this deal? I will be evaluating that deal based on, is this person trustworthy? Is this person loyal, or can he or she be loyal? And third value I will be looking at is, how do I collaborate with this person so that I could create a win-win situation with him or her? So I would say values would be the most enduring leadership lesson I've learned. A leader can be stripped naked. A leader could be stripped bare. As I mentioned again, it'll be great if you could articulate your messages well. But the most important thing is, even if you can't, values. You need to be true to yourself. You need to be true to the community that you're building. You need to be true to your followers. And you need to tell your followers what are your values. Oftentimes employees of major companies come to me and say, Michael, we see the company's values on the wall. We see it every day when we walk through the sliding door. We don't understand it. And I get very disappointed with them, because I would share with them, these are the values that have been set upon by your founders, that have been set upon by the top management of your company. The least you could do is realize that these are the guiding principles that will guide you to make decisions when you become a leader in your dealings within that company. There you go.
Wonderful. And that focus on values, it's so enduring. And I think when I think about values more than anything else, it's those pillars of your life that should never be removed from your decision making. You compromise on your interests, you compromise on your wants, but your values you never compromise on.
No, of course
and
not.
I wonder, can you walk me through a time when your values were challenged, but you stuck to them, and through your leadership you got through a difficult situation?
Well, here's the interesting thing, Hunter. So one of the points I would say, I'll share with you two stories here. Number one, when you talk about values are not supposed to be compromised, I agree with that. But at the same time as well, there are some exemptions. Let me tell you what. So I'm going to quote the first example first. So I have a mentor of mine. He runs one of Malaysia's most successful consulting firms. And I've known him when he was in his early 30s. Now, when he was in his early 30s, he has just married a young wife, and he's amazing. He's a high flyer. He drives the most expensive cars. And you could see when I asked him, what are your values? And he would mention, my values are hard work, creativity, tenacity, innovation, and enjoying life, living life to the fullest. And I can respect that. It is his life. 5 years later, Hunter, the same mentor who continued to mentor me, I love him. He has just welcomed a new family member, and that is his son, into the family. And I met him. I said, wow, look at you. Your lifestyle has changed, has taken a turn 180 degrees. You're no longer driving the fastest cars. You're no longer partying at the coolest, hippest party in town. You're now found at home most of the time with your son. And he said, Michael, my values have changed a little. I mean, I'm still ambitious. I'm still creative. I'm still, I like tenacity. I like adventure. But now that my beautiful wife has given birth to my lovely child, my son, my values have changed, where now family comes in as one of my top 3 values. And anytime that I would have some spare time, I would spend time with my son. And what was interesting was he made me to promise him then. He said, Michael, here's the funny thing, Hunter. He said, Michael, nothing in this world comes for free. I've mentored you for many years right now, and I'm so excited to see your growth. But I won my payment back. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, what type of leader is he? He has never asked me for a payment, and now he's asking it back. And he said, no, you don't understand. I don't want any monetary payment. Look at my son. He is 2 years old right now, and he's there playing with his Legos, right? Playing with his toys. I want you to promise me, Michael, promise me today that when he comes of age, you will mentor him as how I have mentored you. And that was powerful. Because he told me, he said, my son's age gap with you, even though I'm like his senior for like 20 years, he said, I would have a closer age gap compared to him as a father figure to his son. So what happened was I made him that promise. And I'm very happy to share that his son is doing well today. So you can see, when you talk about not compromising values, I mean, you're not compromising values that actually help you lead people better. But at times, with the changes in your lifestyle, you can give yourself some space to amend those values, but make sure those are positive values. Like you can see from my mentor, it was a lot of values of love, right? So there you go. Now, if you were to ask me what is my personal leadership experience, not compromising my personal values, and I'll have to share this. Again, I just want to be honest with you, Hunter, and to all of you watching this right now, I just want to be vulnerable, okay? So running a business at times, you never know. Sometimes you meet a lot of different people, and sometimes you meet people that don't really share your values. And that can come in the form of even your business partners as well. So during one time, it was very sad. I had to let one of my key business partners go. Now, she has been instrumental to my company. She has been amazing. She has been performing, but she broke two major values that my company has, and that was trust and loyalty. And despite the fact that she was a top performer, the moment that my entire company found out that she has broken those two sacred values that have been the guiding principles of thriving talents, even though I would love for her to stay because she has been a top performer, I wouldn't want to waste her. I wouldn't want her to go to a competitor. But unfortunately, you have to know when the values of your leadership style has been ingrained into the culture of your company, and when your staff lives and breathes and sleeps with those values ingrained in them, when they could see one of your team members swaying away from those values, they would retaliate. You could see from their body language, they will feel angry, they'll feel disappointed, they'll feel anguish. They would feel like, why is this not fair? We have been following the values of the company. Why is this one staff getting the exemptional treatment? So I had to let her go because it was a tough decision, but I have to honor the values that I hold as an individual, as a human being, and as a leader, and in running my company. So that would be my personal experience. Of course, it took a dent with my company because we lost such a great talent. But my staff at that time assured me that they would pick up the slack. And as a leader, I think that is one of the greatest testimonial you could hear from your leadership. In a sense where during the times when you're down, during the times when you're in doubt, your team members would step up and assure you that they would do their utmost best in your priority, in your interest, in your care to bring your organization forward with you. There you go.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that story. Oh, goodness.
Oh, thank you. It just happened recently, so it's very fresh in my mind.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. And I love what you're talking about too in the beginning too about that sometimes you don't really compromise on your values, but that doesn't mean that values don't change. There's
Right.
there's a big difference there. I like what you said about that your friend whose son you're now mentoring, the values, his values changed, but he didn't compromise the ones that he had, and he expected you to make that repayment. I love that story.
That's right.
We're pretty almost done here. Just I guess sort of.
Take your time. I'm enjoying this, Hunter. Take your time. And I hope that everyone watching this or listening to this right now, they're getting a lot of value as well. But go ahead. I know that you've interviewed many leaders across the world. I have a question for you. Who are the most inspiring leaders you have interviewed for your book so far? Because as much as we're giving a lot of value to people listening to us right now, I'm pretty sure there are many more leaders who have embarked with you wisdoms that they have had. So who are the more inspiring leaders that you have interviewed so far?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's see. I interviewed a woman who is a Marine Corps veteran, and she told me a story about, pardon?
Look at that. I mean, a Marine Corps. This is one of the most admired military corps in the world, and also one of the toughest as well, as I heard. So if you have interviewed a lady, a woman from such a great establishment, with so much legacy and history, I really want to hear your story. So come on, tell me your story. Tell me her story.
So the interesting little fact that she told me, that of all the organizations in the world, the Marine Corps has the highest rate of their members who have their logo tattooed on them. That's how much of a of a bond there is amongst this group, and that the leaders set such a culture that there's such a draw that people get the globe and the eagle tattooed on them. It's remarkable. That was the first thing she told me about. But then she also told me about a story she had in boot camp where she so she was in basic training for the infantry, and she had a training officer. His name was Captain Harper, and Captain Harper was about 5'6", but he was an absolute cannonball. You know, this is the last guy you wanted to disappoint. And so she's sitting in training one day, and the other officer who's training gets a note that this woman, Angie Morgan is her name, she is to go to Captain Harper's office immediately. And so immediately her heart sinks. You know, she's okay. What did I do? I've been on top of my game. You know, I'm accountable. I'm responsible. And she walks in, and Captain Harper says, you know, Angie, please take a seat. And you know, I just got word that I'm sorry to tell you this, but your grandmother passed away this morning. And he said, you know, Angie, is there anything I can do for you? And she said, you know, she was in shock at this point. And he said, well, you know, here's what I've already done. I notified another officer, and he is going to escort you to the car. They're going to help you pack your bags. We have a flight ready for you at Reagan Airport to get home. We've already called your parents. They know you're coming. Is there anything else we can do to make this easier for you to get home? And so she gets on the flight, thanks him, of course, beforehand, gets home. There's a bouquet of flowers waiting, along with another military officer there to help her get to her home. And so she said, you know, I made an assumption that this guy was a by the book, kind of like almost like a heartless, you know, really authority figure. But she learned though that great leadership, you can be tough and you can, you know, walk the walk, but you can also be compassionate, you know. And it's so easier to relate to someone with compassion than it is to someone who you think you is Iron Man. You can't relate to them, you know.
Yeah.
So she said that seeing a leader who inspired the discipline in people, but also connected with them on a compassionate level, that was a powerful experience for her.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, Hunter, again, just to share, you know, a previous point I mentioned is that people look up to leaders who are able to empathize with their teams. People look up to leaders who, quote unquote, give a damn. And I believe that general, that captain, really did give a damn. And that's all about being compassionate. It's all about.
Absolutely. I can share another story. This was actually a high school strength and conditioning coach. His name is Andre Woodard, and he played football for the University of Southern California back in the really competitive days at USC. And so I was actually, he was at my high school, and one of the things he would always talk about is that the leadership has to set the tone. You got to create the culture. And, you know, there was this thing we used to do where if we were in the weight room and the intensity wasn't there, and he would say intensity circle, and you know, he'd say it very, you know, very forcefully, and you didn't want that, because that meant you had about 30 seconds to get out of the weight room onto the football field, and you circle up, and you're doing up downs together. And he said, yeah, I expect you guys to each be leaders. You know, I'm not going to let you come in here and not set the tone and not be forceful and not be intentional. And he said that the essence of leadership is that ability to get people to think they can do more than what they're currently doing. And so we're doing calisthenics, and it's, you know, 6:30 in the morning in LA, and you know, we're cold and all of this stuff. But that concept of using leadership as a weapon, using leadership as a way to get people to push a little further, you know. And he would always say when you did these up downs, you know, so you start standing and you get down to the push up position, but he never says up. It's on you to pick up.
That's right.
So, and then the other thing is when we all stand up together, we had to call out however many that was. So, you know, we come up and it's 5 or 6, and then, you know, one guy may not be paying attention. He says 4, and you go back to 1, and you don't get out of there until you get about 50 of them. And so it was that concept of the leadership, you know, no one's coming to save you. You know, the leader has to own this. You know, you can't walk around here buck passing. It's got to be you know, you cannot walk around as if the leaders, the responsibility can't be tossed on it like a hot potato. It's got to be owned by each individual. So that's another story I wrote about for the project as well.
Amazing, amazing. And you know, Hunter, one of the things I really appreciate is that what would separate your book from many other books out there is that it's real, in a sense where the leaders that you've interviewed are leaders that people would encounter in schools, leaders that people encounter in the public sector. They're real. And you know, I'm not saying that other leadership books where they feature people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates are not any good. They're amazing. But I think there is a room for a book that is more relatable to the everyday Joe, to the everyday person like me and you. So I'm very glad to be here to share my part of the story from this part of Asia, right in my country, Malaysia, to all your readers out there and to all of you watching this right now.
Thank you. It's wonderful to get these perspectives too. When I first started this project, if you had told me 3 months ago that I would get to speak with Marine Corps veterans, with incredibly successful consultants running businesses in Kuala Lumpur, I would have said, you're absolutely crazy. There is no way that I will get to connect with these people and get to learn from them and write about their experiences and then extrapolate those lessons for my peers here in college. I would have said, you're crazy. I mean, there is no way I'm going to do that. But I'm so glad that I got to get these experiences, and there's so much content here. I can't wait to put it together.
Pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine, brother. Pleasure's all mine. Yes, you had a question you wanted to ask me.
This may blend into one I asked beforehand, but what would you say is your most lasting experience as a leader when you had to overcome a difficult situation or perhaps failure?
Wow. Let me see. One of the most lasting experience I've ever had as a leader is to be open and to be vulnerable, in a sense where there were times, and again, I could quote any experience, right? But this experience is recurring because as you're running a business and you're working with Fortune 500 companies and you're developing their young leaders for them, they can be very demanding. They give you strict deadlines. They expect you to perform on world-class standards, and come on, we're based here in Malaysia. We're competing with consultants all the way back in the United States. We're competing with consultants all the way back in Australia, in the UK. And they would oftentimes ask us, why are you so impressive? Why are you so unique? Why are you so important? So oftentimes I tend to push my team to think of new ways, to think of new innovation, new simulation, new experiences that could develop better, more effective, productive younger leaders for companies. Now, going back to the point of one of the most enduring lessons I've learned about leadership is that when you become a leader, at times it comes with a little bit of ego, in a sense where you find that you are this symbol. You're supposed to be this untouchable force that is admired by your team. But I would like to share with you that it is okay to be vulnerable. In a sense where being a leader, it is okay to go up to your team members and say, guys, I've exhausted all my resources and I really need your help. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. My apologies if I've disappointed you as your leader. But I want to share with you that as much as my title reads, I'm the founder and CEO of the company, I want to let you know that I respect your views as well. And right now, I am here needing your help. I think a lot of leaders, especially those who are more traditionalists, they will never show their vulnerable side because they'll be saying, Michael, why would we be vulnerable? Then we'll be looked down. Then we'll be taken advantage of. Now, they may have some points there. But I'm a believer by being a leader, especially to lead the millennials, where everything is online, everything is on social media, everything it's at their fingertips, easily accessible through the smartphones. I think people really want leaders who are authentic. And authenticity actually often comes from being vulnerable. But being vulnerable, I'm not asking you to show off all your weakness. What I am asking you to do is be open to admit mistakes, be open to ask for help, and be open to admit that you may not know everything. That would be my most enduring lesson that I've learned, because we work with major clients and they're very demanding. They're world-class standards. And oftentimes in Malaysia, Thriving Talents, we are one of the younger talent development companies out there. And no doubt we have won many accolades, we have won many awards. I mean, the biggest testimonial we give to our clients these days is that President Barack Obama actually visited us in our training. And I mean, that's amazing, right? And we've worked with many hundreds of companies from the Fortune 500 list across the world. But I would often tell my team, when a client pushes to our limit, don't think that they're trying to kill us. Don't think that this is an obstacle that we cannot overcome. In fact, embrace it. Think of it as they're really pushing us to our limits, because every time when we succeed in extending our boundaries of our limits, we would have created a new standard. And because we have created a new standard, that would allow us to fight in a higher standard, that would allow us to give value, to service more people at a higher standard. Oftentimes, I believe as a leader, that's how we need to inspire our team, to turn adversities into opportunities. So that would be one of the most enduring lessons I've learned, Hunter.
Love that. Push that you create a higher standard. I love that concept.
Right.
You know, you create a new standard every time you push a little further. You know, I love that concept.
Exactly. And I mean, if you look at our world's greatest leaders, right? You look at like people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. You know, how could they create Microsoft and Apple? It's because they have always been pushing the boundary, and they've always been finding that comfortable spot in that new created boundary space, if I may say, and they always operated at a higher standard. Trust me, Hunter, when I first started Thriving Talents at the tender age of 24, and when I approached my first few clients, they laughed me out of the office. First thing they said, Michael, you're here to develop our younger leaders. I said, yes. Your younger leaders are the future of the company, they're the future of the society, they're the future of the country. And I would often get greeted with laughter. They would say, Michael, my son or my daughter is much older than you. They're still studying in university, but yet you're here trying to tell me that I'm supposed to hire you to teach my staff about leadership. Are you out of your mind? And you know, it was sad. You know, we knock on walls. We got rejected all the time. And the first client that gave us an opportunity was Microsoft. And you see, when Microsoft gave us an opportunity, Hunter, it was tough. My team members were literally, if I may add, like they were crying. They were like, you know, we're just a startup. We're still a small company. You know, there are many other established talent development companies, training companies out there. Yet we need to land Microsoft as our first client, and they're so demanding. They only expect the best if you were to work with them as a client. And I would always comfort my team. I said, guys, imagine this. Let's look at the rainbow. At the end of the rainbow, if we manage to work with Microsoft and we build so much value for them so well, the other companies are going to come and we'll be playing at a higher standard. We'll be playing at a different level. And then that was what happened. I fondly recall Microsoft gave us an opportunity. It was something really small, a 4 hours training to develop young leaders. Thank God we did it well, and they loved us. We got registered as their global vendor. And our next client, shockingly, was another Fortune 500 company called Intel. Our third client was General Electric, another Fortune 500 company. Our fourth client was Oracle. Our fifth client was Oracle's competitor, SAP. Our sixth client was HSBC, and the list goes on and on and on, to name a few. So again, because we, as a leadership, as setting that leadership vision, we have set a higher standard. And a higher standard for Thriving Talents is we play with the big boys. We develop people based on standards that we have experimented with Fortune 500 companies. And that has helped us grow throughout the years. That has helped us expand across the world. That would be the main core message that I want to share.
Wow, I love it. Just getting that first in the tasting that success beginning with Microsoft. That's the new standard. This is where we're going to start. You know, we're going to start right at Microsoft, and from there we're going to go to, I think the next one was Oracle, and then SAP, HSBC,
Intel. There you go. And then Sony came into the picture. It was amazing.
And we should look at every time they ask more of us as an opportunity for us to raise the standard that they expect. And that's something that should be an opportunity and a privilege than more so than we look at it as an obligation. I love that concept. I'm sure that just pushed the team to be even better and better. I imagine, you know. Wow.
Of course, Hunter, when I first embedded this concept, they were saying that, oh my God, it's too ambitious. We're going to die. We're going to die. And guess what? Being a leader is you need to be there with your team. You need to comfort them. You need to walk the fire first, symbolically. In a
Yeah.
sense where if you were to tell them, guys, we're going to work with Microsoft. And if you were to ask your team members, hey, since we're going to work with Microsoft, guys, as your leader, I'm going to delegate it to you. Go talk to Microsoft. And you'll be thinking, what the hell?
Yeah.
So as a leader, I would need to be the one to reach out to Microsoft. I would need to be the one to get all those initial rejections, make it happen, and then wham. And I think that's what leadership's all about. We talk about pinnacle leadership, right? It's about creating that struggle, creating that cause, creating that goal that will excite your team members to work with you.
And did you ever did you ever think through and when you're going through those rejections, and I'm sure it was difficult when you were starting, you were 24. Was there ever a point when you thought as a leader, maybe I can't do this, maybe this just isn't going to work, or and I know you didn't. So how did you get around those feelings if you had them?
Well, of course, there were times I was thinking, maybe I should just quit this entire thing and then just go back and get a regular job. Because just to share with you, Hunter, starting Thriving Talents was not my first venture. I've had great opportunities in my life. For example, I was trained by Deloitte, one of the world's top consulting firm. I was trained by the Boston Consulting Group, one of the big fours in the consulting world. During my tertiary studies in New Zealand, I've had great opportunities to learn courses from Harvard, from Stanford, even from INSEAD. So I am academically inclined in the sense that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to academics. And when it comes to professional careers, I've also had it as well. I mean, I've done crazy things as well outside of my professional career. Like I became one of the curators for TEDxKL, which was the largest TED Talk here in Malaysia and in the Asia region during that time. But one thing I find though is that when you get rejections, you can always have that pinnacle moment of, are you going to make a decision to quit? Because if you're going to make a decision to quit, other circumstances, other outcomes, they may not all be negative. It may be positive as well, but they may come. But as long as you hang on, as you believe that you can add a lot of value to the work that you do, people are going to support you. And I'm always a believer, especially if you're starting a business, it's something I call a numbers game. You may be talking to 10 companies, and we still have it today. We still have it today in Thriving Talents. We talk to 10 companies. Maybe out of 10, we have a better ratio today. Maybe 4 would say no to us, but 6 would say, yeah. But when we first started, we have spoken to 10 companies. 9 would say no to us. 1 would say yes. And all you need to do as a leader is to lead your team, to give so much value to that one client, to that one person, to that one leader, to that one community that you serve. You give so much value to them, and they have been impacted, they've benefited so much from your value. And at the end of the day, they become your spokesperson. They become your testimonial to get more people involved. So I think one of the things that leaders should also do is how to rally up their team to be genuine, to be sincere, and to be absolutely 100% focused in the work that they're doing. Leaders tend to be ambitious. Leaders tend to think, I can do everything in the world. Guess what? Be focused. Deliver 100% value. Just like how I'm talking to you right now. I mean, I'm having a meeting with the United Kingdom Student Council coming up. We're expanding our business to UK, God willing, again. But I am here talking to you. I'm not on my phone. I am not on my chat applications. I'm here talking to you, Hunter. I'm here talking to all of you watching this and listening to this right now because I am 100% focused in giving you as much value. And I believe that is my leadership trait. I want you to walk off from this conversation getting golden nuggets that will change your life. And I'm absolutely 100% focused in helping you do that.
Awesome. I love it. And I love that line you gave to make the client the spokesperson,
That's right.
Make the other person, make those you're serving your spokesperson, make them your proof. I love that concept.
Thank you.
Michael, those are my questions. This was extremely helpful. I don't know if there's anything else that any other things you're itching to speak about that you think would be really helpful, but Those are my questions, but thank you so much.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to conclude, Hunter, for your time. I'm just going to conclude with two mantras that I've personally held throughout my life. The first mantra is leaders should never wait for opportunities. Leaders should create opportunities. That's the first mantra. The second mantra I've always lived in my life is this: leaders should walk with the kings, but leaders should never lose their common touch.
Should walk with the king.
And leaders should never lose their common touch.
But not lose common touch. Well, I'm sorry. What do you exactly mean by lose their common touch?
Look at this. Leaders, when they climb too high, when they've been elevated to a CEO position or they're holding a political office position, sometimes ego tend to get to their head. They believe that they're walking with kings, which they are. They're walking with presidents, right? And I mean, I've had the great opportunities to work with the Malaysian Prime Minister. I've had the great opportunities to even meet your president, President Barack Obama. Symbolically, I felt that I have walked with kings. But the challenge is, after all this achievement that you have attained, how could you still maintain that common touch? Common touch in a sense, even though you are now this high flyer, you have this great position, people look up to you, you are idolized by people. Never ever lose that common touch. Never ever lose that touch that you have with the commoners, with the people on the ground. Empathize with them, sympathize with them, and always remember, before you were a leader, you too were an average Joe. You too were a commoner, if you would say. So respect a commoner just as much as you would respect a king. That is what is meant. Walk with the kings, have big dreams, big aspirations to change the world, just like a king, but never lose that common touch. Never lose that heart to want to help people. Never lose that sincerity to be focused on only one person, one community, one world, when you want to see how you could be of service to them all.
Awesome. So it sounds like it's that concept of staying grounded, staying down to earth, and staying.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
It's literally that concept. You know, the higher you go, the higher you climb, you need to stay grounded. I've just basically made it more poetic in that way.
Awesome. I love that line. It should walk with the king, but not lose their common touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those. I appreciate it. I'm going to incorporate that one into the story when I write this up. Awesome.
Oh, please go ahead. Hunter, thank you again for making time to interview me. I'm very proud that the Malaysian side of the story could be shared with you. And I was just wondering, please do share with the audiences watching right now, when your book is out, how we're going to get the book. Have you made any plans for that yet?
Yes. So the way the process will work, I will be publishing in December of this year. And the book there's going to be an ebook available on Amazon, and then there'll be print copies available as well on Amazon. It's not going to be very much. The ebook, it's going to be under $10. So it will be available through New Degree Press, which is the firm that has actually have my date with them in 2 weeks to confirm my first manuscript. So my pre-approval for publishing is in a couple weeks. So it will be available on Amazon, and I really hope that it's of use to people. And it's written by a college student for college students, and that's my hope, is that that someone walks away from having read this thinking, that's right. This is what Michael's been telling me. This is what I believe, that I may be 18, I may be 25, I may be 35. I'm not in the C-suite, but that doesn't mean I can't be a leader. And what I mean by leader is that it doesn't mean I can't make someone else aspire to more, And then that's the essence of what I'm going for here, and helping college students find their niche in leadership, just as you've helped millennials find their thriving in their workplace in Malaysia.
Thank you so much, Hunter. Thank you. And I hope I'll be able to get a copy of your book, and I would love to feature you again after your book has been published. This time, I'll be the one asking you questions from all the leadership lessons you have learned. we're living in a world of abundance. My ideas are going crazy in a sense. I would love to host you here in Malaysia, speak to university students, share with them what are some of the leadership principles you have had. But all these great ideas are coming into my mind right now. But let's take it offline. Let's discuss it more. But it's been such a pleasure to have you, Hunter. And I hope for all of you watching and listening to this right now, you have actually gained absolute 100% value. Thanks, Hunter, for initiating this project. And thank you again. And we look forward to your book. And again, one last time, Hunter, just to close it off, what is the title of your book? Take it away.
The book right now, the title is The Time Is Now, Learning Leadership in College. It should be available on Amazon in December.
Thank you so much, Hunter. And of course, for all of you watching and listening to this right now, when Hunter's book is available, we will be sending you the notification so you could support. I'll be supporting it as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hunter, and bye.
Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate it.
Bye.